In the richest country on earth, millions of young Americans wake up every morning already behind. Not because they failed, but because they tried to get an education. Man, that is just a haunting thought, isn't it? We've always been told that education is the great equalizer, right? The ultimate key to unlocking a better life. But for millions of people today, that key hasn't opened doors. It's actually locked them inside a financial cage.
Welcome to this explainer. Today we're unpacking the massive, really complex machine behind America's student loan crisis. We're going to look at the systemic causes that created this trap, the hidden psychological realities of modern debt, and how something originally designed to build futures is, well, quietly dismantling them.
All right, Section 1, the promise of education.
To really understand where we are right now, we first have to look back at the original promise. For decades, America sold this one very powerful idea. Get a degree and you build a better life. That was your bridge to dignity. Parents sacrificed their life savings and teenagers worked exhausting night shifts. But I want you to think about the micro-level transaction happening today. A typical 17-year-old sits down and signs a legally binding financial document. There's no lawyer in the room, no financial advisor. Seriously, there's no real understanding of compound interest. They just bring a whole lot of hope. And 4 years later, that signature transforms into a lifelong bill that's going to follow them right into middle age.
Okay, let's zoom out a bit. Section 2, a $1.84 trillion crisis.
We need to talk about the sheer scale of this, because the numbers are just absolutely staggering. $1.84 trillion in outstanding student loan debt. Let that sink in for a second. To put that into perspective, that figure is actually larger than the gross domestic product of many entire countries. We've got millions of Americans who now carry balances that are literally bigger than their annual salaries.
And that mountain of debt is spread across 44.6 million borrowers. Now keep in mind, this isn't luxury debt. These people didn't just go out and buy sports cars they couldn't afford. This definitely isn't gambling debt. This is debt accumulated purely from the belief that learning would create freedom. Yet for nearly 45 million Americans, it's done the exact opposite, creating this deeply entrenched system of financial anxiety.
And the mechanics behind these loans? It's like a terrifying mathematical paradox. The average borrower balance sits somewhere between $39,000 and $43,000. But because of how the interest is structured, millions just find themselves completely trapped. They make their payments month after month, year after year, and when they check their accounts, the balance barely moves. In a lot of devastating cases, despite years of faithfully paying, the balance actually grows. It's wild.
So how did we get here? Section 3. The business of college.
How exactly did higher education transform from a public good into this massive debt industry? Well, decades ago, strong government funding meant lower tuition. You could actually cover your costs with a part-time job. But as public investment dropped, universities expanded aggressively, and honestly, they adopted a very corporate logic. Suddenly, we saw the rise of massive sports complexes, bloated administrative costs, and quite literally, luxury campus lazy rivers. Universities began treating students as customers, degrees became products, and student loans became the fuel driving this entire machine.
And this created a really dangerous, self-perpetuating cycle. It goes like this. Step 1, universities raise tuition. Step 2, because loans are so easily available, students just borrow more to cover it. Step 3, this creates massive revenue for the schools. And Step 4, with all that easy money flowing in, there's absolutely no incentive to cut costs, which leads us right back to even higher tuition. The easy availability of massive loans ironically fueled the explosive rise in the cost of education itself.
But it's not all about the math. Let's look at Section 4, the psychological toll. We really can't just talk about the economics here, because beneath all these numbers lies a profound psychological crisis. Just look at these impacts. Studies are increasingly connecting educational debt to chronic anxiety, depression, sleep disorders, and severe emotional burnout. Borrowers report feeling totally trapped in their own minds. This debt, it plays like background noise even during moments that are supposed to be joyful, birthdays, vacations, family gatherings. It's just this ever-present shadow. Researchers actually have a medical term for this: physiologic weathering. Now, this isn't just feeling stressed on the day a bill is due. No, this is chronic, unrelenting financial pressure that methodically damages your emotional and physical health over time. Imagine carrying a heavy, invisible weight on your shoulders every single day for 20 years. That fundamentally changes a human being. And of course, modern technology has only intensified this emotional damage. We live in this bizarre social media contradiction. Every day, borrowers are scrolling through curated feeds of external success. You see perfect vacations, luxury apartments, the illusion of total financial freedom. But internally, millions are silently suffering. They're sitting up at midnight, quietly calculating their minimum loan payments, feeling ashamed and left behind. It is an invisible, deeply isolating kind of suffering.
Which brings us to Section 5, the delayed American dream. Because they are operating in this permanent survival mode, an entire generation is being forced to fundamentally alter their life timelines. The American dream isn't just getting harder to achieve, it's being heavily delayed. Just look at the major milestones being pushed back or abandoned altogether. Marriage, having kids, homeownership. People aren't asking, hey, what am I passionate about? Instead, millions are forced to ask, what job is going to pay just enough to help me survive my loan payments? Freedom has basically been reduced to a math equation.
Let's ground this abstract concept for a second. Take the archetype of a young teacher. They graduate with enormous debt, right? And they're driven by this profound, beautiful passion for helping children. But after paying for rent, healthcare, groceries, and that massive monthly loan payment, almost nothing is left. Their passion is effectively punished by crushing monthly survival equations, which leads to a really painful question. Can passion actually survive financially in America? Or consider a nurse, working absolutely exhausting shifts during national emergencies, totally essential to society, yet still feeling economically trapped. Or think about a talented grad with an idea for a brilliant startup. Massive debt destroys their risk tolerance, so instead of innovating, they take the safest corporate job possible just to survive. America is quietly losing businesses, losing inventions, and losing the peace of mind of its most essential workers, all because of this debt burden.
But there's hope. Section 6. Pathways to Freedom.
We definitely cannot stop at just the problem. The most important thing to remember here is that systems created by humans can absolutely be reformed by humans. The sources point to a much-needed structural reset. We need mandatory financial literacy before these loans are ever signed. We've got to fiercely promote and destigmatize vocational and community college pathways. And we need real policies focused on lowering actual tuition and creating transparent repayment protections. Because the truth is, not every meaningful, successful life requires lifelong, suffocating debt.
But beyond just policy, we really need a massive cultural change. Success shouldn't only mean expensive prestige degrees and this endless, exhausting hustle culture. We have to stop measuring human worth solely by income and job titles. Young people desperately need society's permission to pursue sustainable, balanced lives over this performative, debt-fueled version of success. Which brings us to our final thought. The student loan crisis is ultimately a mirror reflecting our modern contradictions. Freedom isn't merely the ability to borrow money. True freedom is the ability to live without constant fear. So, if true freedom is the ability to live without constant fear, what does that make America's $1.84 trillion education system? I really want you to think about that. If this explainer resonated with you, or if you've been fighting your own silent battle with student debt, please share your experience in the comments below. Behind every massive statistic is a real human life, and having these conversations is the first step toward change. Thanks so much for joining me to explore this.